So in this video I want to talk about failure or dealing with failure as an artist, and it's something that absolutely every artist I've ever known goes through. It's something I personally absolutely have to deal with all the time. And to begin with, let's talk about failure in the eyes of others and failure in your own eyes. And those are two actually very different things, because many times you might hate what you do and others might love it. This is true in music and writers that write novels, any art form at all. A lot of times it's very difficult for the artist who's creating the artwork to have a real honest perspective on whether that painting or piece of music or whatever it is good or not. So you really can't trust yourself, and yet that's the only guide that you have is your own personal taste. And this is really the dilemma that all artists are faced with. So it's this crazy thing where on the one hand you're being very critical of your work, and that's what's actually allowing you to get better and better, or to see your mistakes, or to always be improving. But it's also the same thing that can discourage you and feel like you're never happy with your own work. So it's really important to understand that you will never see your own paintings the way others do. And this is far more powerful than most people realize. You can be painting something, and I know this from when I teach my students, and they can paint something and be doing fantastic, and they're really discouraged and they don't think their painting looks anything like the source photo, when actually it looks great. So this is a really big deal, and it's something that you're going to have to come to terms with. But in my own personal story, I started painting, and I was never happy with my paintings at all, and I was always very discouraged, but I was always ready to move on to the next one. And that's a very positive thing to do. Once you finish a painting and you call it finished, then that just put it behind you, move on, call it a learning experience. It's not even up to you to ultimately decide whether people are going to love that painting or not. So this is a personal story where when I was painting portraits, every second or third portrait I would get tired of just working on these portraits, and so I would do these landscapes just out of my imagination. But I would do one after another, and I never liked any of them. I think there was one that I liked a little bit, but the vast majority of them I would start and I would be enthusiastic, and then by the time I was done I would actually almost stop painting these landscapes because I was just frustrated and felt like it was going nowhere and I didn't know what else to do with it. So I just put it over on the side. And for years I always assumed that those paintings were not very good. But then when I look back at it, every single one of those paintings I ended up selling. I would have clients come in to look at their portrait and they'd say, is that painting over there for sale? And I'd always sell it. And I always thought, boy, I can't believe they would pay good money for that lousy painting. But that's not for me to decide, and looking back on it, I now know, because I've seen some of those paintings, and after not looking at them for 20 years and not even seeing them or have even a photo to look at, when I go back and I see some of those landscapes, I often think, oh, that's not bad. It's not at all what I remember. So there's this, process of when you're painting a painting, you can become more and more, the more critical you are of your work, the more you start breaking it down and trying to understand what's wrong with it and everything else. You're no longer seeing that painting with your heart. You're not looking at it like, a fresh viewer that's experiencing it for the first time at all. You are deep in the weeds with that painting. You really can't enjoy it the way a viewer that's seen it for the first time can. This is no different for somebody that's a writer. If you write a novel, you can't expect to read that novel like a first-time reader and be able to enjoy that book the way they can. So that's the very first thing, is to understand that. Now again, going back to my own personal experience, the only reason I kept painting was because people were telling me they loved my paintings, and people were paying me money for my paintings. And so I thought, well, I don't like this work, but it's, I'm getting paid money and I like doing it, and so I kept on pushing. But this was something that I really did have to deal with, and I never was happy with my work. And to this day, I still can never really enjoy my own paintings. Van Gogh who is, if you ask people all over the world, who's your favorite artist, Van Gogh is #1. For the most part, Van Gogh did not like any of his work. There were a few paintings that he, thought might be okay, but he was always very critical of his own paintings and frustrated with his inability to, paint the way he wanted to. But the reality is, even during his life, he was not a popular artist, and all the art critics were saying that he wasn't very good, and he never had any, recognition, any real recognition while he was alive. But after he passed away, of course, he became one of, or the most popular artist in the entire world. So the thing that's going to drive you through all of this frustration is your passion to paint. And, I always feel like the real essence of an artist is two things. It's your passion to paint, which is the thing that keeps you in the studio and keeps you coming back after you finish a failure painting and you start on another one. That's the passion for painting that will drive you on. And when it comes to taste, that's going to be what determines what you paint and how you do your compositions, and the taste is what guides you. But that's really the essence of being an artist. But the other part of it, again, is being very self-critical and not being able to enjoy your own work. So I have another video which is called Love What You Paint. And this is a video where I talk about if you and I noticed this in my students, they would start on a painting and they would get about, halfway into it or whatever, and then they would say, I don't even know why I'm painting this. I don't even know if I like this subject matter. I'm having real second thoughts. I think I'd like to start, just quit on this painting and then start another. Now, you have to understand, and this is a really big deal, and I have a whole nother video about this, as I mentioned, Love What You Paint, and I'll put a link in the description of this video to that video. But when you paint a painting, when you decide what you want to paint, and you're picking out your subject matter and you're deciding, okay, I want to paint this, that is your absolute peak of your ability to judge whether that is worth painting or not. The moment you decide, okay, I'm going to paint this, and then you take it and you start calculating how big your canvas should be and start doing your penciling and start doing all the work, that's when your ability to judge whether that was a good painting or not diminishes. So the question would be, let's say you've worked on a painting for 3 weeks, and now you decide, I don't really care for the subject matter anymore. When were you, did you learn something in those 3 weeks? Did you all of a sudden gain this ability to judge what a good composition is or whether a good subject matter is? Or did you just get tired of it through the laborious process of doing the painting? And it's certainly not that you got smarter and wiser and more ability to see compositions in the 3 weeks. So you decide if something's worth painting or not, and once you decide that you like something and you really want to paint it, then stop thinking about whether it's worth it or not. Now it's time to do the work and to do the job and to paint the painting. And your ability to decide whether that's worth painting is only going to diminish the more you work on it. So that's really important to keep in mind. And then there's another point I'd like to make, and that is that, failure really is part of the process. You learn by failure. Every painting that you paint, I would recommend that you actually attempt to paint your masterpiece, but you will almost always fail. But that's part of the deal. You give it your absolute best, knowing that you're very typically going to fall short. The real joy for painting for me is finishing a painting and then giving it to somebody and seeing that they love it. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in taking private classes from me here in Austin or online, email me at mark@drawmixpaint.com and I'll send you information about my classes. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.